AI, risk and governance, three words rewriting how modern leaders should think. The rules of strategy that worked 5 years ago can't govern a world where decisions are made at machine speed and ethics are judged in milliseconds. In today's Power of Mind forums discussion, we are having Pragatheesh and we will explore the truth on AI isn't disruption, outdated strategy is. Together, they unpack how risk, trust, governance must evolve, not just protective value, but to define blending four pillars drop of power of knowing, which is technology, cyberspace, growth, and strategy. Your go-to podcast on these four pillars. A special welcome to all of you who joined our Power of Knowing weekly podcast series, episode 298, live on LinkedIn. To have this topic discussed, we have Pragatheesh B, a global cybersecurity leader, Global Capabilities Center, GCC, CISM, Information Security, Cybersecurity speaker. Let's welcome our esteemed speaker to our podcast event and dive into the topic. Hi, Pragdish. Welcome to our podcast, sir. How are you
Uh,
doing? How are you doing today?
yeah, hi G. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to connect again.
Sorry. There is a missed. This one happened there.
No worries.
Uh, Pragdish, let's start with one pointer because today we are talking about why does AI require us to rethink the traditional risk management strategies.
Mhm. Okay. So basically, AI is actually evolving, and then the risks associated with AI adoption is increasingly complex. And also, I think from an traditional risk perspective, so the traditional risk was in a sense that we were able to predict the traditional risk and quantify it, and then we were able to apply a risk management strategy around it. So hence we had a historical record of how a risk looked like, and then we were able to quantify the risk using fair kind of a methodology, and then we were able to justify the required budget to mitigate it. But when it comes to AI based risk, the risks are new, unpredictable. So we are trying to understand the unknowns. We know certain risks, but there are several unknown risks. So, for example, model drift or maybe explainability. So these are all different risk, novel risk which AI brings to the table, and then it's all about how we trying to approach it. So I don't think the traditional risk methodologies and the risk quantification or risk assessment work with the new ways of working of AI. So that I think is the demand, or maybe that's the main criteria by which we have to look at evolving the older strategies. So that's what I think why it needs to evolve.
Okay. Now coming to our pointer where we were talking about, you are saying AI introduces novel risks like model biases, data poisoning, and adversarial attacks that do not fit classical risk models. Are we saying that, Pradesh?
Yeah. So, sir, with any new technology, it brings with its own risks. So basically, in our traditional methodologies, we usually classify risks into different category buckets by categorizing whether it is a high level, high risk, or kind of a low risk category, and then based on that, we apply the mitigation strategies. But when it comes to risk, AI based risk, so you AI Act has also given us a criteria to define the risk based on the scoring. So they have introduced a new risk category called as unacceptable risk. So what they actually classify unacceptable risk as anything to do with people and its social information. So that is a kind of an anything to do with critical infrastructure becomes an high risk, unacceptable risk. And then they classify into high risk category and the low risk category. So data poisoning comes under an low risk category in a certain extent. But if you see from our experience and our expertise, so data being the foundation of all the AI decisions, I think data should also be considered as one of the high risk category. So it all depends from the context by which we operate. But at, if we see holistically, data should be considered as an high risk category, and then it should be given the right treatment from a governance standpoint. Um, so things are evolving from different spectrums. Maybe I would like to understand your perspectives from how it is getting evolved as well. So I want to get an interesting viewpoint from you.
At what happening is AI is there, but AI implementation is becoming an expensive because AI means you need a lot of investment in terms of the systems that needs to bring up the tool sets, and there are not a single tool set that comes in because when we look at AI, you have a lot of tool sets now. Incident management will have a separate tool structure that is to be looking at. Now, governance frameworks which are to be followed have a different framework, whether it is a NIST framework or if you look at the compliances, whether you are in the European region or in the US regions, the compliances and governances of AI, EU AI Governance Act says a different model for every pointers that we need to look at, right? So now AI has been emerging in many places, but in cybersecurity or risk-based things, we have something called as an at the moment we may talk about some of the knowledge base which we can automate using AI, right? When you have a service desk for maybe a BPO or cybersecurity itself. Say if you look at the cloud infrastructure for that matter, if you have a help desk and you have some of the known errors that are there, and you don't need a person to be looking at that place where you can have a bot which can have all the data which will, these are the set of questions, these are the set of answers. And how you build trust is that data is validated, you give proper data to it so that it takes the right amount of data while it is answering. So and you know better where we say about what kind of data gets feeded is more important and very critical when we talk about AI, right? Because that data has to be cleaned, verified, validated in a way that it should does not give out information of PII and other pointers, right? Where you cannot give customer names or the billing rates and some of the names of the proprietary products and stuff. That's where I think data is very very important when we look at risk management strategies. How AI can evolve with that data is what I feel is more to look at. And if you look at the kind of risks that we are seeing, the number of malware and other attacks that are happening, humanly it is not possible today to look at because
Exactly.
you need to see you will have 500,000 incidents if you are having an employee strength about 5 to 6,000 people at least. So you have that kind of hits that will come in when you see the incident management side, where you will not know what is the exact risk or an incident, how many false positives are there. If you have a AI system that will help us is what I think. Then having a AI when it is more useful to track such things rather than having a traditional risk management strategy is what I think.
Okay. I think you made an important point, sir. This also brings to another point wherein there are so many regulations that is coming our way, and then organization needs to keep up with so many regulations, and then it also actually how do we simplify the governance? So maybe I can share few perspectives which I have gone through, and then maybe you can share your perspectives as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
yeah. So from a simplification perspective, I think traditional governance structures are actually periodic in nature, wherein we do certain periodic regulatory checks and then the compliance check marks. But I think in the AI way of operations, it should be on a routine, not a routine basis, on an real time basis. So it has to be real time, and it has to do continuous monitoring of the complete AI data pipeline and the AI system together, to ensure that we monitor the regulatory requirements, at the same time we monitor the compliance perspective as well. So that's what I feel. It should be in an agile way. So what I think, in the new way of operating in the AI uh, mindset, is like to have monitoring systems, and also the frameworks and the compliance should be adaptive in nature, so that it can adapt to the changes. Because previously, based on my experience, we see technology changes every 2 year, and then there is an adoption cycle of another 1 to 2 years. So 4 years period is when we actually adapt the technology and then implement the technology and run it into production. But now with AI, every 2 months there is a technological change in the AI space, and then if we don't have an adaptive risk management and governance framework, I think we will end up in an traditional framework, which is very static. So that's my view, sir.
No, you said a very important point because earlier security was a tick mark because we've discussed this in many of the
Hmm.
platforms, right? So what used to happen is security was considered to be audit ready, internal audit or external audit ready, and some policy used to say there should be an audit. So audit also used to happen once in 3 months, which is a routine way of looking at. Now traditional ways of looking also, they used to say these are the systems that we will audit, these are the systems that the maybe the EU AI Act or the ISM or the SOC 2 or ISMS standards predicted, saying that this is what we'll have to look at. Now that was a traditional approach. Then used to schedule somebody coming in for 3 months, then they do an internal audit, then they look at the sanitization of the system, how the data is stored, what are security what is your cloud security posture, whether it is AWS or Azure. Used to look at those things. Now with AI governance coming in, we have everything as templatized. You said something has to happen, right? So there should be somebody who's monitoring it all through. So the workflows are built with those traditional frameworks itself, whether you take it CCPA or GDPR or HIPAA or AIMS acts that are there. These are regulatory bodies that are emerging. And what is happening today is we are not looking at regulations or audits to be done on a periodic basis. Nowadays, it is on demand. We are looking at having workflows which check every day whether there is a requirement. Are we missing some of the audit or compliance requirements that are there? Because the fines that we are talking is very huge when you talk about data coming to, because today data is a new oil where
Hmm.
we need to look at how data is sanitized, verified. If there's one mistake, there could be a lot of changes that can happen to the whole system because one triggers the other. That is very, very important when when you have an automation done. So if you have to find flaws in some of these things, then you need something to also continuously look at what are the changes compared to yesterday, what are the changes compared to 1 week back, what are the changes that the acts have implemented while they were doing about 6 months. If there is a version that has been updated, a policy has been updated through these acts, so that also has to be looked at. Now, coming to that point, or what is happening is, when we talk about risk thinking, is we will have to think risk every day. You have to look at, you are at risk at this moment because you don't know what is coming new, right? We are safe till today, and when you have that trust built, where we say we have safeguarded what is there till now to the known things, that is where we stand when we talk about traditional stuff. But AI will bring in this kind of uh, acts which are workflow based. They'll automatically monitor, as we spoke about some time back. We also spoke about where we said, if there is something that we are missing, AI will detect. False positives was one of the example that we took some
Mm.
time back, right? Now, coming to those things, it becomes very easy for us to look at when we have AI. Now, what is that we have to do when we look at implementation of AI? We should make the practices very simple. There are two ways that you should look at cybersecurity: security by design or security by design default. These are the two things that you should look at. What is by design? You embody security in the design phase of it. So if you are designing a product, you need to look at what are the product features each country or each act is looking at, right? And that acts need to be looked at, and that workflow has to be built. If there is an issue that this act or this kind of data is passed, it should do a check where this cannot be adopted, or you should give me a warning saying that this is a gap that we are finding where it is misaligned to the policy or the framework. So those are few things. Now, by design, we have to look at once, right? When we
Mm.
put security, by default, you will not do anything without having the checks of the parameters that you have to look at from a security angle. Maybe an API that you are using, is that an updated API which you are using, or you have created some API using an open source tool? Is that vulnerable? What is the CVE for it? So these are few things that we should be designing while we bring some of the AI governance evolving, addressing emerging regulatory and business demands. So these are few things that I think we should be looking at when we bring. Now, point to you is Pragdish.
Yes.
AI frameworks are popping up faster than they can be adopted.
Mm.
How can the enterprises simplify governance without losing rigor? Because you don't know what is coming today, tomorrow. We know something what is there today. And you made a very important point also, saying that by the time we implement, 1 year is gone, whatever we want to look at. With the fast adoption, how do we look at this?
I think from my perspective, there are so many frameworks that each company can adopt, and then it is, I think it is a framework fatigue, like how we are trying to learn AI. So, kind of a disclaimer, everyone, even this podcast, we are trying to rethink how we thought for almost like 20 years, and then we are trying to uh, get into an AI era, so to speak. So there are so many frameworks which are out there, and then it applies to different sectors and different industry in a different way. And I usually, on a lighter note, I usually say this: we are using perplexity, but as a human we are perplexed by the amount of information that we are receiving from a personal standpoint, from a knowledge standpoint, and also there are so much frameworks which we are trying to learn and adapt in our professional working life as well. Being said that, I think there are three frameworks which I got inspired by very recently. One is obviously the EU Act, which came in recently, which actually defines how an enterprise or an organization should categorize the risk. You also mentioned about the interesting point of secure by design previously in your conversation. So that also alludes to one point, which is risk by design. So I was thinking on if security is by design, why can't risk be by design? Why can't we do the threat modeling upfront and then do the right risk assessment and then apply the frameworks? So that is one perspective which I thought when reading about the UA Act. And then there is another interesting framework which actually provides the organizations with proper assurance and kind of an compliance, which I liked as AI TRISM. So AI TRISM seems to be a promising framework which is already adopted by major AI vendors or AI product OEMs who creates AI products, because it it gives four pillars for the organization to ensure the complete AI life cycle is rightly governed. So basically, the problems of explainability, XAI in short, as we call it. So that is actually one of the core pillar in AI TRISM. And then we actually worked in DevOps pipelines, CI/CD pipelines, and then we called so many fancy operational things. They also evolved with the model ops. So how can we operate the model with the right ethics, fairness, and transparency? So there are several interesting areas that I have seen in AI TRISM. And then finally, I also got inspired by ISO's 42,001. So we know ISO 27K. So that's all the traditional methodologies that we are aware. But we are also trying to learn what is ISO coming up with for AI. So these are all the three important frameworks which I think has to be adapted and set up in organizations in an stacked way or in a tired approach, keeping the risk as the underlying foundation for all framework implementation. I don't think so one framework is going to suffice the purpose of any organization. So it has to be multi framework blended approach that will bring the right risk management and governance strategy to any organization. So that's how I look at the recent frameworks.
Got
Sereni?
it. Yeah, I got that. See, what is happening is many organizations fear over-regulating AI might lead stall innovations. So, what is happening today is, as you rightly said, there are multiple frameworks. ISO ISO 27000 is what we have now. We were all caught up in the ISMS
Mhm.
27000 piece, right? Where we are talking about it was information security. Now, I'll take an important point because
Yeah,
I've been hearing all these things from the start of my career. Because when I started as a system admin only. So we used to talk about not cyber security. We used to talk about network security at that time,
exactly.
right? So network security became information security because it was talking about information security. Then we slowly converted that into network security and information security. So it became again ISM. That's where the standard of ISMS started looking at. Then once we moved from the traditional way of security, we moved into the cloud. It became cloud security, right? So you have the same points. Azure called it something. AWS called it something. Red Hat called it the same network interface itself has different names, right? So it is the same thing when you look at the AIMS point also that we are talking about, this 42001. This framework is similar to the ISMS framework, but it talks more about how the AI management system should look at, what are the pointers that it should take care of it, and that's where the Fear that we are seeing always is the compliance bottlenecks that may come up. What is that we are missing? Okay. And how do we take a balance when we take about control it and having some of the creative methods that we can implement, right? Now, what happens here is when we have too many frameworks, that means we are catering into multiple zones or the locations. Now, with cloud being, every country has their own data governance policies. Now, DPDP is one policy that India is looking at, right? Now, similarly, CCPA is there for America. So, when you Americas, now if you go to European Union, they are talking about GDPR. Brazil has something separate, right? So, everybody has their own frameworks when we talk about data management. Now, how do we cater? Now, how these organizations regulate themselves? So the first point that I would say is you look at what is the region that you are serving. Look at that region, start looking at whether you are the biggest pointer that we should look at is I had made this mistake myself where we had the cloud infrastructure built in one location only. When we see you need to build cloud infrastructure or the instances that are near to the customer location. That way you save lot of costs. First is that. Then the second point is you will not fall into this bottlenecks of what is that is there in their region for data protection or cybersecurity. What is that policies that they have to look at? What are the frameworks that are now? If your customer is in the UK, you should look at having the servers pinned somewhere in the region of UK side. When you are having in the East Coast side, in the US side, you should look at East region somewhere there. One mistake what we did when we were doing one of the cloud implementation was that we built all our infrastructure in one region,
Mm.
and we then found out there are so many gaps that we had. Data regency, regional thing has to come up. Then we have to give justification. We need to bring servers in a different location. So what we're talking some time back also was that security by design. Where is your customer sitting? What that requirement gathering itself also should be a security based requirement gathering. That's how I think organizations can come out of this over-regulated AI thing or the innovation stalling part, because you are catering to set of customers in this set of region. You look at those policies, those frameworks, and the fear of justified is not getting misplaced. It's just going to be that this is what I will cater for the European region. This is what is the guidelines for US region. This is for APAC regions. Australia is something, Middle East is something. So you will have to look at security parameters and data uh, collection or retrieval strategy based on these frameworks, these standards. That will make regulations much more easy. When you look at you can look at innovation thrives when rules are smart, not strict, because you need to fix that rules very smartly rather than making it strict, and then we look at for an option to bend the process and we get into deviation pointers. Now, coming to you on AI adoption often is expensive and often exposes silos between IT, risk, and leadership. How can strategy bridge this divide? Your thoughts on it?
Okay. Sir, I think when we are adopting AI, so it's basically a new technology that we are trying to adopt. So it has to tie back to the strategy. So any tech adoption that we are trying to do, it has to have a linkage to the tech strategy that we are developing. Maybe it depends on the organization, it depends on the team. So certain organizations creates an strategy for an year. Usually AI native organizations create for an year or two because it is very rapid and evolving. But the traditional organization creates strategies for a 5 year period, 3 year period. Certain organization creates a 3 year period. So when we are trying to adapt AI, strategy plays a key role. It has to be binded with the strategy. Then AI adoption also brings another key risk is the silos. It creates silos because the developmental teams want to move fast, meet the tight deadlines that they have, and then they want to use all the open source technologies, and then they want to adapt much more faster than the business teams ideating for the features. So that exposes a different set of risk. So it has to be seen from a holistic standpoint, and as I said before, it has to be seen as an life cycle from the start to end. And then it should we should ensure that there is no fragmentation in the whole life cycle. So when we see it from an governance or maybe risk standpoint, there needs to be an oversight at the top. The governance body, kind of a steering committee, which manages the end-to-end life cycle of the AI data pipeline for AI native organizations, and whoever is adopting AI and then creating an AI product for their customers. So it has to be end-to-end, is my view, sir. So basically, governance has to be tied to strategy, and it should not be something like we are doing a red taping into the existing model. So it has to be thought through completely, and it needs a fresh different AI mindset to create the right strategy, and then tie it up with governance and other parameters within the ecosystem. So that's how I see it.
Your point is valid. When we look at what is happening today, is even the cybersecurity. What is happening today is when we look at a strategy, cybersecurity is always considered to be an IT job only. It is not that. Now people should understand that cybersecurity or security is the concern of the whole organization. When you are part of an organization, it becomes your part also, sir. You should look how you look at exposing or leaving some of the data on the table, right? Which can lead to lot of risks, because that is cross division that we should look at. It is not going to be, as you rightly said, every say if you are looking at a product development, you need to look at how engineering is looking at the product and how the marketing is looking at the product, right? Now these are two people, one who builds the product, one who sells the product. Now both have to look at their angle of bringing security. Now whether it is going to be IT, risk, or leadership, everybody has to think how the product is going to solve a problem rather than building something which is going to create a problem,
Mm.
right? So if you don't look at security from start to end, then we are not creating cross domain councils, we are creating silos only, right? Now as you rightly said, we should connect governance with strategy. Now strategy is to say that we should have a product which delivers this functionality, that's fine, but what are the components that are used, what is that it is going to show it as, what is the dashboards that are there, are they secure, when you put some data to it, is that data being encrypted, or where is it getting stored, is it in our region? These are the considerations that we should look at when we talk about strategy. And this, if you look at a product development, I'll take product development because it is easy to explain. Now engineering has this set of features, these are the tools that is being used. Marketing or the other guys should feed in information saying that these are the few things that can risk our product, these are the few things that can be given. You do a market survey, then say these are the flaws that this product is, or these bugs are there. So you come to know these are the things that are there. Then you do a survey campaign saying that how it is functioning, whether it is taking a load, is my ports are open. This is because product means I need to block all the ports except the port that it has to be accessed, right? Kind of, if it is a HTTPS with a port, this one you need to map that port when the URL is hit, right? So these are things that we should look at when we look at having a integrated product. When we talk about AI also, AI, when you adopt AI, it should not be adopted to one division again. So this is where we are talking about AI often exposes silos between these, because when you put pointers where IT has to feed in data for AI, where risk or security team has to look at, where cyber leadership has to put their pointers, then we are not talking about silence. Then it is going to be a product which is going to talk across or implemented across the organization. That's how I think AI should look at, because we are trying to solve a problem rather than create a problem, right?
Exactly. Ji. And this also brings to the another point, which I always think that previously we were having bit of a boundary. So we call it as perimeter defense. I think you mentioned about network security, which we worked previously when we started our careers. So now I think the boundaries are blurred. So there is no such boundary that we can protect and then provide a defense about. So, what's your thought on how should we define the boundary? What's the boundary that
You
exists
cannot
in AI?
define a boundary at the moment, Fred. The point that, see, boundaries were at a stage where we could look at having a infrastructure which was specific only to India, example, right? Now we don't know where our servers are there, right? Looking at the customer base, we are talking about server sitting in US where we are working using a dedicated VPN, or uh, those servers we are connecting through VPN, and we are processing the data there only and leaving the data there only. We are not transferring any of the data to us at the moment, looking at what we have at the current structure. Right now, organizations see breaking that old perimeter model and making classic risk assumption absolute. That's what we want to look at. The rare What we are trying to bring is resilience rather than just prevention. How do we look at when there is an outage? How do we look at instant spinning? Now, if you look at these shopping sites like Amazon or Flipkart or anything, they don't have a big infrastructure always. They have a resilient infrastructure which scales up and scales down based on the need. Now, if they are running a season or a discount sale going, which is going on the festive side, like Diwali sale is going there, at that time they bring in more instances, but the security still remains the
Foundation layer.
same when you bring more infrastructure, compute power also to
Mm.
only cater to the OLTP operations that are happening. But if you look at the governance models or the AI pieces, those get added to the existing workloads that we are having. Rather than bringing absolute things, we bring in new compute power and see those old parameters things are not coming up, and we look at changing those bottlenecks. Now, you said we don't have boundaries at the moment. We serve a customer in the US, so that is going to be our boundary where data has to reside. There only it has to be processed. Whatever is the customer requirement, as per their guidelines, their norms, that is how we look at controls. And how do we operate those models? Those models are operated based on those governance standards and practices, or that frameworks that dictate these are the set of pointers that should be looked at. These are our boundaries, these are our controls, this is where we stand, and this is what has to work. Anything going beyond that is going to be a violation,
Super Ji.
right?
I think
Now,
that
risk.
gave us an idea that we should think without boundary because data is residing everywhere, and then we are processing data in without boundaries. So that I think is a key takeaway for me. And then
Now,
scaling up and scaling down, right?
yeah, scaling down, because cloud infrastructure, if you really look at, it's a cost. Uh, every moment you run
Mm.
an infrastructure on the cloud, whether it is Azure, AWS, GCP, Oracle, or Red Hat, any cloud that you're talking about, IBM cloud also. Now, every instance is costed based on the compute power, the RAM that you use, the kind of disks that you use, whether you're using a standard SSDs or ultra high speed disks. Capacity matters. So, if you look at each workload, there is a cost that is coming in. Now, with the shopping carts that we were talking about, they have one set of this one, they would have configured for a set of this much users. Say, if my OLTP operations hit maybe 50,000, 50,000 one should go to the next workload server that will take. Two can go to another server, three can go to another server. So they do that round robin structure where when one request is processed, the second request is processed by another workload, the third is processed by a workload. Then this is what we talk about the load balancing in terms of how the load comes in when you do OLTP operations. Because same product, I may be ordering from Bangalore, you may be ordering it from Chennai. It depends, right? So how do we bring that kind of controls is scaling up and scaling down the infrastructure. That reduces cost also. That is one kind of a control that we should be having on our infrastructure, right? So coming to our next point that I want to understand from you,
Mhm.
risk leaders need agility, not red tape, right?
Mhm.
How can AI governance become a growth enabler?
Okay. So I think maybe this question is more towards the leaders at the program development perspective. So probably the persons who is at a CISO level leader. So CISOs basically define the program, security program for the entire organization. So that I think it has to start from there. So I think most of the organizations have moved into agile frameworks, but this is a different agility that we need at a CISO level, because that agile framework goes in the PI planning and then into sprints and then into tranches. But I think that speed is not good enough for an CISO, the leader who is managing the risk. So it has to be at a leader level, at a CISO level. So there needs to be different hybrid governance and hybrid functions, which encompasses the end-to-end stakeholders of a particular project or a particular program, to have cross-functional leadership at the same time. So probably it is wise or good to bring in a risk officer into the team or into the steering committee, and then bringing in the AI leader into the steering committee, and also a product development lead into the committee, to have a mixed bag of experience and mixed responsibility. However, the accountability should sit with the leader who is governing this entire function. Mostly in most of the organizations, it sits with CISO, since they are driving the security program. So AI could be one of the pillar into it to enable the core business function. However, I see the risk leaders and the today's cyber security leaders has to be agile and adaptive. So that is how I see it from an a leader perspective. So what's your take on this, G?
Now, what you said is very, very much true in terms of having the leadership. Now looking at how does the CISO start thinking from a see, any CISO who's moved would have been a protector of data somewhere. We started as you would have started as a lead. So his experience at some place looks at more technology driven how to, but you would never look at strategy, right? When you come to streets, become a CISO, we have to look at how strategy should steward the AI trust piece, right? And balancing innovation also. Now, you cannot have everybody jumping in working on one piece of work. There you should be implementing framework. One person should be looking at how you solve if this is an AI prism which you are talking about, or you talk about NIST AI RMF that we are talking about. Then somebody gets him to know and say this is how the EU Act looks at, and we look at lead across disciplinary teams and make sure that the expert give us the inputs saying that these are the things that we should look at. and how that frameworks can be embodied into the system, and make sure we make it the trust measurable. Because when you go to the boards, they don't understand what you're talking about. They say this is what we saved, this is what is the investment we did, this is where we stand. And when you report that kind of a structure, they only look at how much did you save, what is that you did. Now they look at cost, right? When you look at, say, example, say AI incident response thing is given, say, 50 million as the
Budget.
budget for the overall organization. I'm giving a higher number, but
Yeah.
is too high. But that kind of funding does not happen. I just gave a number to
A
look at the
hypothetical
large
one. Fine.
organization. Yeah. So, and that fund is coming from the board, and board says, if you give me this, now you brought this framework, that framework, I don't understand all these things. But when you talk to board, you should tell, with this framework, we've avoided fines of, say, X amount, say 20,000 or 50 million fines could have been avoided because of this, have been avoided because of this implementation. We have brought down the ticket management, in terms of which was used to, our ticket resolution was, say, 4,000 tickets a day with 100 employees. Now we resolved 40 tickets at an average, right? Now if you look at AI implementation, we said we found, for in that 4,000 tickets, we found 50% being false positives, which are not there. So these are all false that are not there. So we eliminated. We came down and we structured it to this one. So this is the cost of that resources that we saved. That way you are giving that explanation. Now these people would look at only those kind of numbers. Now, how do we balance that? It is human plus AI. That's what is the balancing that we should look at. How much human work is reduced, and how much AI work is increased to making governance be balanced. That is what I think we should be looking at when we look at CISOs or anybody getting into that structure where we bring some of the AI based governance becoming a growth enabler. Because we saved there, the board will be in a position to say this is the next investment, or this is what you are going to suggest, we are going to go ahead.
Yeah, I think
Hope I
you
answered your
also,
questions.
yeah, yeah, definitely, sir. I think you also covered the practical steps that leaders should take while evolving their security strategy. I think two, three things popping up in my mind on this line of practically, what are all the practical steps that an leader can take in their professional life? So probably, I think what you summarized is basically right now all the AI investments are mostly ROI driven. So basically, every organization who is investing in AI expects an return of investment as soon as possible, as quick as possible. But I have a different perspective in this. So any tech investment that we make in any organization usually takes time to reap the benefits of it, and then investment might take time because most of the AI technologies are enabling the core business that they are driving. So let's say if it is a healthcare, then probably AI is implemented to come up with a new drug. If it is a fintech, so how can we make the customer experience much more easier? How can we reduce the time that customer interact with that fintech solution um, with a trust element into it? So there are several elements wherein the AI is implemented to solve the business problem. So that is one point which I thought of sharing. And then the second point, in terms of practical applications, is it is about the collaboration that matters in AI implementation. So previously, the tech team will come up with a feature and then they implement it on their own in their own agile way of implementing. But now AI being into the picture, so it needs the connect and the governance with the the strategy pillar as we discussed. So it's kind of a collaborative function that has to evolve, which will give practical implementation. And also, I think just because AI is evolving rapidly, organizations or maybe practitioners are also trying to uh, create strategies for the GTMs, the go to market, much more faster. So that also creates new type of risks, because the products are created with very core features, wherein the security measures were not taken adequately. So that is one thing which I think is kind of a risk element that we are overseeing. And also, AI implementations can take a phased approach. So probably, if we can phase out by creating roadmaps, I could see there are so much roadmap that are coming up for learning AI. So likewise, when we are implementing AI, so it needs to follow a roadmap, is what how I see from a practical steps that any leader can take, so that we operate in an controlled environment, wherein we will have enough time to adapt AI, at the same time migrate our solutions to AI or with AI enabled solutions, and then we can get into the market or to our customers in a very structured way. So that's my take on practical steps, sir.
Very important points there, Pragdish. Now coming to your way of looking at what practical steps should leaders take now to evolve their security strategy for AI risks.
Mhm.
Your input on that.
So specifically, I think we have just now discussed about the practical steps. I think this is an interesting question. How can we focus specifically on the risk mitigation strategy? So when we talk about risk mitigation strategy, so the product roadmap or the AI adoption roadmap plays a critical role. Um, so basically, when we are implementing AI at the initial stages, specifically in security, we are trying to automate the workflow. So that is one use case that most of us are into. So when we create an workflow, so first we create an business process mapping, and then we create an workflow based on the business process, which will fetch us the right results. So from a practical risk standpoint, we have to see the workflow not only from the end result perspective and the triggers it is initiating, and we also need to see the risks associated with each workflow components, so that we will be able to mitigate the risk upfront, and also we will be able to automate the workflow to create a desired business outcome. So that's one practical use case that I could think of.
No, very. No, what we are talking about is we are trying to see how risks can bring in unified trust in the customers is what we are looking at. And now, if customer will come to you, I'll take one example because today we are everywhere on cloud only. We don't have see any infrastructure which is there is an hybrid infrastructure for operations which are not required to be online. OLTP, right? Online transaction is not required. So now, when we look at these kind of this one, how do we see security there from a security management standpoint? How is this data coming in? What is the kind of security that we are? So AI teams collaboratively deploy continuous monitoring. That is one thing that can happen when we do this kind of risks that we need to look at. When we continuously monitor, then we have some of the tools picking up what are the governance statuses that we are looking at, or what is the status of our governance score or our cloud security score, which will establish a transparent reporting metrics, right? And executive boards can look at these transparent results anytime. It's not that I need a report. You give them a dashboard with their requirement, and if the dashboard is can be populated based on that, you can see that leaders can look at seeing their security strategy for AI coming into a dashboard when they want to talk about some of the parameters which brings in business, because leaders look at outcomes, as you rightly said. When we bring outcomes, they want to see the results, and if you give them a dashboard which shows that results, then you are winning the boards just like that, right? Now, with
Absolutely.
that, now, what tools and governance models can prevent or mitigate inevitable AI-related incidents, like maybe a data leak or a shadow AI? Any inputs on that?
Yes. So when we talk about the tools specifically, so I think you touched upon two different aspects. So how can we mitigate the AI-related incidents? So I have recently observed that there are several AI-related AI security posture management tools which are coming up even in India and globally, just to understand the AI attack surface. So basically, what most of the tools does is it creates the AI catalog, which means basically trying to get the inventory of all the AI implementation within the organization wherever we have implemented AI. This also ties back to the AI TRISM framework. So this is one of the core pillar in AI TRISM framework. So AI SPM is actually one of the tools that most of the organizations are trying to adapt to mitigate and identify incidents. And when we specifically talk about data leakage, we have certain tools like Microsoft Purview. Though we are not promoting Microsoft tool as such, so just quoting an example of Microsoft Purview. Microsoft Purview has three different components, wherein one is the insider threat and risk management feature, and then it also has this feature of data leakage prevention as well. So likewise, the data leakage is an important concern for most of the organization, because every developer who is trying to create code within AI is somehow trying to give away the organizational data into the AI platform. So it also implements with the guardrail. So when we speak about the mitigation, so guardrails, AI guardrails plays a major role. That becomes the accountability of the governance board to define the necessary guardrails to ensure the intellectual property of the organization is not leaked in an AI chat that any employee is interacting with. So specifically, when we talk about the developer world, basically they deal with API keys and the secrets. So it has to be stored in the right way, and then in a programmatic way, it should not be revealed and given to the AI system of sort. And then you also touched on the shadow AI. I think shadow AI is a major problem across the industry, because every employee or everyone who is um, trying to adapt AI and also in the transformation journey is trying to experiment with some form of AI, Gen AI platforms within the organization, or maybe in their BIOD devices. So that also poses an major risk to the organization. So it all depends on how we are controlling the environment that this AI operates, and having the right visibility. And then I think you also mentioned about the metrics. So metrics plays an important role in this. So how many incidents are related to AI or shadow AI? How many data privacy or data related incidents that we have encountered or observed during an year? So those kind of new metrics related to AI is also evolving, and I think we should have an closer look into that aspect of having the right metrics, so that from a governance standpoint, we are able to govern the whole risk posture of an organization from an AI front. So that's my take on certain practical
you
tools.
you refer to some of the important points, nahi? I think what we are talking more is on the R bomb and S bomb things that are AI BOM, which is
Correct,
which we
correct.
are talking about, right? Runtime bill of material is one thing that dynamic inventory is getting updated, or the tools that we are looking at. And now AI bill of material is one thing that all the components used to build, train, deploy these AI systems. These are the two things which are becoming critical for the AI adoption. Now we need to have a clear clarity in saying what are bombs that we are using, and what is AI BOM bill of materials that we are using has to be clear while we start adopting or building an AI system. That's my take when you look at tools and some of the governance models that we should look at while we are mitigating the AI related incidents. Because when you know what is the tool sets that you are structuring the boundaries, or not looking at the data getting leaked. That's the first step, I think, what we should look at. And coming to our final point, what is one principle every leader must embrace for AI governance in 2025?
Okay. So I think maybe I will make 2 points. So one is outcome driven. So all the processes, all the AI adoption should be outcome driven. And then from a risk and governance standpoint, there needs to be an steering, kind of an cross-functional steering team, which has the accountability to oversee and govern the entire implementation of AI, would be my key takeaway.
Thank you for that, Prakash. I think with that, we have come into the final on top of the hour also. We've done the pointers that we wanted to discuss today. We spoke about how the strategy must be evolving, and we think about risks and trust and AI governance, and we spoke in length about the frameworks. We spoke about in length about the frameworks that we have, the standards that we have, and how data is becoming the next oil, is what I would say when we look at the overall episode of last 1 hour, 1 minute as we speak. Okay, we have gone 1 minute. But Praktish, any final pointers that you would like to add before we conclude, Praktish?
Thanks for having me, sir. It was a wonderful opportunity to discuss with you. It's actually a topic that we are learning and researching. So probably this, whatever we have researched and then whatever we have brought in from our previous experience, we try to discuss in a very transparent way. So it all this has to be taken with the applicability of different sectors, and then it depends on the scenario to scenario. So this is something which we try to give an attempt and endeavor to discuss. At least let's start discussing and rethinking of how strategy has to evolve with trust and AI governance for the AI adoption.
Thank you, Pragdish. That's a great insight. I think it was pleasure discussing some of the pointers that we want to look at when we talk about risk, trust, and AI governance. And to that audience, join our community of leaders turning automation from cost into catalyst. Our next episode that we are talking is going to happen tomorrow, which is going to be who leads who, stress-free leadership tools, frameworks, and art of living practices by one of the leading leadership coach tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. We have streamed this podcast live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We hope you found this discussion valuable, and thank you for joining us. Pratish, thank you for being here. It's great having you here today, sir. And with this, we would like to conclude our session, thanking you and the audience for making it happen today, Pratish.
Thank you, sir.